My dear students of class 9A and 9B, welcome to my history and civics class. Today, as I mentioned in the board, please look at it. The Lodi dynasty, the Bahlul Khan Lodi, Sikandar Lodi, Ibrahim Lodi, and Daulat Khan Lodi. These are the points I am going to re-explain. You know, before the new dynasty, the Lodi dynasty started ruling India, previous two dynasties who ruled, number one, about whom I discussed in my previous class about the the Khalji dynasty. The Khalji dynasty, about Tughlaq dynasty. I discussed about Tughlaq dynasty, but after Tughlaq dynasty, a very small dynasty ruled for few years, that was Said dynasty. But at the end of their rule, another dynasty also ruled for few years. The name of the dynasty is Lodi dynasty. Lodi dynasty. Now, who is the founder ruler of the Lodi dynasty? The founder ruler of the Lodi dynasty is Bahlul Khan Lodi. Actually, they belong to Khizlai tribe. Their kingdom was larger than Said dynasty. Bahlul Khan Lodi, who was the founder of the Lodi dynasty, he took over the empire from the ruler Aram Shah, and tried to add more and more territories in different parts of India. As a result, he added many territories, he occupied many territories of India like Jaunpur, like Uttar Pradesh, Gwalior. These all had become parts of the Lodi dynasty. And then he appointed his eldest son Barbaksa as the viceroy of Jaunpur. But suddenly his eldest son died due to a clash between himself and another tribal leader. But that area was occupied temporarily by one tribal leader, but his name is not mentioned in other books also. But after the death of his second son, Sikandar Lodi succeeded him as the king. Sikandar Lodi succeeded as the king. But Barbaksa as the viceroy, appointed eldest son Barbak, who Bahlul Khan appointed his eldest son Barbaksa as the viceroy of Jaunpur. But after his death, his second son, Sikandar Lodi, means eldest son died, then second son of Bahlul Khan Lodi, Sikandar Lodi, was appointed as the king of the Lodi dynasty. Now, what is about Sikandar Lodi? Sikandar Lodi tried to recreate the past glory and image of the Lodi dynasty, because the Lodi dynasty, after having established a new reign in India, they were unable to establish themselves strongly in India like the former kingdoms like Khalji dynasty and Tughlaq dynasty. Said dynasty totally failed to achieve success. But at the end of Said dynasty, Lodi dynasty just tried to occupy certain areas of India by adopting good policies. But the sudden death of Barbaksa and the sudden death of his father Bahlul Khan, the founder ruler of the Lodi dynasty, gave a chance to Sikandar Lodi to frame good policies, and as a result of it, he conquered Jaunpur and Bihar and shifted his capital from Delhi to Agra. But his intolerance towards the other communities like Hindus made him extremely unpopular. As a result, the strong Rajput tribes, Rajput race, they all grew very much offended, and they decided to stop the rule of Sikandar Lodi. But Sikandar Lodi was able to somehow, the Sikandar Lodi was able to continue his rule. Sikandar Lodi somehow was able to continue his rule. But after the death of Sikandar Lodi, his son Ibrahim Lodi ascended the throne of the Lodi dynasty. The Ibrahim Lodi was determined to bring the former glory and image of the Lodi dynasty. But in fact, Ibrahim Lodi could not understand easy thing that making a good kingdom, making a good dynasty, a well-established dynasty is possible only when he would be able to gain faith of his countrymen. But far from doing it, Ibrahim Lodi started framing very repressive policies. The policies which should not have been framed by him as a ruler of India, he did it. Why? Because at the attitude, his intolerant attitude towards other religion also made him very much unpopular like his former ruler Sikandar Lodi. And ultimately, what happened? Almost all races of India, they decided not to cooperate with Ibrahim Lodi. Ibrahim Lodi and his forces, his army, started repression, adopted the policy of repression for other communities, and everywhere there was no justice throughout the country. Almost all people led a very miserable life under Ibrahim Lodi. Ibrahim Lodi was a very mean-minded ruler. Why? Because he did not have any faith. He did not have faith even on his reliable officers. He never believed anyone else, but believed only himself. That's why no one had any respect for Ibrahim Lodi. But what had Ibrahim Lodi done? He gave a birth of a number of enemies of him. As a result, Daulat Khan Lodi, the governor of Punjab, and his uncle Alam Khan decided to shift him from power. That's why they started plotting against Ibrahim Lodi. Ibrahim Lodi was not only intolerant ruler, but also a ruler of such temperament. A number of amusements, entertainments always invited him, always attracted him, and he used to participate in it without caring of the miserable conditions of the common people of the country. And this bad habit and the wastage of money, whatever he spent by way of attending a number of cultural programs, entertainments, enthusiastic ways, and this luxury, this luxurious life he led gave him unpopularity. He did not have any faith, any popularity, and as a result, these two persons, his uncle Alam Shah and his governor of Punjab, Daulat Khan Lodi, decided to shift him from power. Now, what was needed most? Cooperation of a foreign ruler who might defeat Ibrahim Lodi, because Ibrahim Lodi soldiers, Ibrahim Lodi had a large army, but the army were not well trained, because Ibrahim Lodi had no time to motivate his army. He simply paid salaries to the soldiers and maintained a large army. But only for that reason, the two persons, governor of Punjab, Daulat Khan Lodi, and his uncle Aram Khan, decided to invite such a person who they were sure that who would be able to defeat Ibrahim Lodi. Babur, the ruler of Afghanistan, Babur would come to India and defeat Ibrahim Lodi was sure to them. That's why they invited Babur, the king of Kabul. So Babur came from Afghanistan. Babur accepted their proposal and decided to avail himself of the opportunity. On reaching India, he met Ibrahim Lodi in the first battle of Panipat in the year 1526, and then he not only defeated Ibrahim Lodi in the battle but also killed him. The large army of Ibrahim Lodi, fought against the soldiers of Babur, but the new technique, the new method, the new worship, the new strategy, whatever Babur adopted, disappointed the soldiers of Ibrahim Lodi. Ibrahim Lodi did not have any idea as to how cannon should be used. Babur applied it. Babur used cannons in the battlefield. The sound, the echoes of cannons, created horror among the minds of the soldiers of Ibrahim Lodi. Almost all soldiers left battle with great fear in order to protect themselves from being killed by the attacks of the cannons. They all left battlefield, and ultimately Ibrahim Lodi was killed by one cannon. And after the death of Ibrahim Lodi, Babur established a new dynasty in India, the Mughal dynasty, and the two persons who invited Babur, Daulat Khan Lodi and Aram Shah, both of them failed to make Babur understand that India was not his place but Kabul. So he should get back to his own country, Kabul, and let them rule their own country. But Babur was very intelligent enough. Babur did not ventilate it that he was going to establish a new dynasty in India, that the flora and fauna of India attracted him a lot. He heard a lot about India, that he was going to establish a new dynasty by defeating Ibrahim Lodi. He did not ventilate it to Daulat Khan Lodi. Daulat Khan Lodi did not have any idea. Alam Khan also did not have any knowledge of it. Simply they thought that Babur belonged to that family who were invaders. That, Taimur Long and Mangal Chengiz Khan, Babur also is from the same family. That's why Babur also would be an invader. By invading India, he would get back to his own country. But finally, they came to know what they expected from Babur was wrong. Babur proved it to be wrong. Babur established a new dynasty in India by defeating Ibrahim Lodi. The name of the dynasty is the Mughal dynasty in the year 1526. Up to this, my dear students, thank you.